THPRD Board of Directors meeting for May 12th, 2020. Jessica, please take roll.
Ashley Hartmeyer-Prigg.
Here.
Wendy Kroger.
Here.
Tia Ping.
Here.
Heidi Edwards.
Here.
Felisa Monteblanco.
Here. First on the agenda, is there action or a motion resulting from executive session?
Yes, this is Ashley Hartmeyer-Prigg. I have a motion.
Perfect, thank you.
I move that the Board of Directors authorize staff to acquire a trail easement in the northwest quadrant of the district for $186,775.99 discussed in executive session using system development charge funds subject to the standard due diligence review and approval by the general manager.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
This is Heidi. I second.
Thank you. Jessica, please take a vote.
Wendy Kroger.
Yes.
Tia Ping.
Yes.
Heidi Edwards.
Yes.
Ashley Hartmeyer-Prigg.
Yes.
Felisa Monteblanco.
Yes. Next up, we have our proclamations, and I know staff was super helpful and gave us assignments. So first up, National Water Safety Month. Let's see, I'll start. Whereas individual and organized forms of recreation and the creative use of free time are vital to the happy lives of all community members, and Tia, it's your turn. You are on mute.
Sorry.
You're okay.
Hold on one second. I had to pull it up. Whereas education, athletic, and recreation programs throughout the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District encompass a multitude of activities that can result in personal accomplishment, self-satisfaction, and family unity for all, regardless of background, ability, level of age, and
whereas the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District recognizes that swimming and aquatic related activities relate to good physical and mental health and enhance the quality of life for all people, and
whereas the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District is extremely proud of our swimming facilities, aquatic programs, and other related activities, and our contribution to providing all ages a healthy place to recreate, to swim, build self-esteem, confidence, and a sense of self-worth, which contributes to the quality of life in our community.
Now, therefore, the Board of Directors of the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District does hereby declare the month of May 2020 as National Water Safety Month, and do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote this observance.
Wonderful, thanks so much. And we have a second proclamation for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas since the 1970s, the United States federal government has recognized May as Asian American Month to commemorate the first Japanese people who came to the U.S. in May 1843, and to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in May 1869. And
whereas THPRD is proud to honor and celebrate the many contributions and accomplishments of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in our community, and
whereas nearly 74,000 people who live in Washington County today are of Asian or Pacific Island descent, contributing significantly to the social, economic, and cultural fabric of our community, and
whereas the Asian American and Pacific Islander community in Washington County is incredibly diverse, representing people from more than 20 unique countries of origin, including China, India, Japan, the Korean Peninsula, the Philippines, Vietnam, and more. And
whereas THPRD respects the heritage and cultural traditions of all people and we are grateful to serve a community with such diversity. And
whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month is an occasion to recognize and appreciate the rich history, culture, and achievements of community members.
Now, therefore, the Board of Directors of the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District does hereby declare the month of May 2020 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote this observance.
Wonderful, thank you, and big shout out to the staff who wrote that. Next up, we have audience time. In this unique situation, we're going to have Secretary Ping read the 2 pieces of testimony we have received, and we will keep time, and they'll be limited to the 3 minutes. Tia, just let us know.
Okay, do I need to start a timer or anything, or Jessica, you got that?
I'll time it.
Okay. So this is from Rachel Duke, who's the Executive Director of SEPA. It says, Dear Board of Directors, thank you for keeping this conversation about affordable housing on the front burner. The agency that I lead, Community Partners of Affordable Housing, know that the kind of community we want, one that has room and opportunity for everyone, requires all of us with a vision and stake in the community to step up together to find new ways to address important community issues. So again, thank you. As you know, the documented shortage of affordable housing continues to be one of the most challenging social issues that we face. THPRD has the opportunity to impact this in a significant way. System development charges have an enormous impact on the supply of affordable housing, adding costs and one more hurdle to the Herculean challenge of financing new affordable communities. These charges can total nearly $1 million for a single project, increasing the funding gap that a nonprofit housing developer may not be able to fill. This can be enough to act as an impenetrable barrier to affordable housing development, limiting supply and the chance for some of us to have a safe, healthy, and positive place to call home. Additionally, the local support that SDC waivers demonstrate to other funders make our applications more competitive as we look for scarce state resources dedicated to affordable housing. That is, other funding sources are required not just for financing, but as a way of showing that there is community support. I would also add that funding and stewarding the beautiful park system you have developed can most likely be accomplished even with the impact of waiving system development charges. Public agencies, with the understanding that we are still working to create an equitable community, have historically found ways to avoid excluding lower income households from their services and benefits. If families are not able to afford to live in the community, they cannot benefit from the investment that you are thoughtfully making. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to share my feedback. Rachel Duke. Do I start the second one?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is from Sheila Greenlaw Fink. It says, Dear THPRD Chair and Directors, the Community Housing Fund, CHF, would like to acknowledge the critical work that THPRD staff and board have been doing over the past year to establish a new framework for affordable housing SDC waivers. The benefits available to those who live and or work in the THPRD district are significant. Access to high quality parks, open space, and recreational programs are important contributors to physical and mental health. We know we need more parks and more affordable housing. Without a full or partial waiver of your SDCs, many affordable housing developers will continue to be pushed outside THPRD's boundaries, where financial feasibility is easier to achieve. And to many of your part-time or seasonal staffs and other residents of modest means, they will be pushed outside the district boundaries to find housing they can afford. An equitable parks district must consider how it can balance the benefits it provides with the tax and fee burdens it requires to develop and operate parks. We know there are many different ways you can address this equation over time, but the fee waivers under consideration may be the most critical. To develop an affordable housing community, sponsors must work over several years to assemble anywhere between 5 to 15 sources of funding to cover the cost of development. We believe this is why historically fewer regulated units were produced in the THPRD district than other parts of the county. Unfortunately, This leads to a situation where the challenges of paying out-of-district fees or commuting long distance into the district mean that many communities of colors and family of modest means have too often not had the opportunity to access the amazing spaces and services that you offer. Affordable housing sponsors compete for limited public and private funds, and while developing in a high opportunity neighborhood with good access to parks contributes to successful applications, high soft costs, including SDCs, will lower the chance of success. THPRD can help support the critical needed development of affordable housing in the district by implementing a fee waiver program. Some jurisdictions have provided this relief for many years, and for all regulated housing up to 60% of area median. When thinking about how to target your limited resources to achieve the greatest benefit, keep in mind that homes targeted to those at 30% of area median are a limited commodity, typically only made feasible when combined in a larger project with a majority of units serving slightly higher income households, up to 60% of median income. We need regulated housing across the spectrum, 30 to 60%, and would like to see meaningful support on a per project basis and a program that is easy to understand and implement. Thanks once again for the incredible, important work on this methodology, which will benefit households in THPRD's district for generations to come. Regulated affordable housing properties often have affordability provisions lasting 50 to 100 years, so this is a long-term investment in your community.
Thank you, Tia. Since these questions, or since this public testimony came in today, Janine, can you remind us, we're going to continue the SDC methodology conversation in June, correct?
Yes, in June, you'll see the residential tiering, and then sometime later this summer, August, I believe, we'll come back with a level of service and rates. And then after that, return, once you have a picture of what the new SDCs will be, return with the affordable housing discussion.
When do you envision a vote for this?
I would say probably August, September on affordable housing. The methodology would not be adopted to November, but you can adopt that policy earlier.
Okay, thank you.
And we have a stakeholder list, which includes these organizations, and we're keeping them up to date on our progress.
Writing this down, thank you. Perfect. So did anyone have any follow-up questions for Janine regarding this topic? If not, we'll go right into committee liaison updates. And Wendy, how about we start with you?
Thank you. Just two. One is that I'm missing the smiling faces of the people from the Parks and Facilities Advisory Committee. I know that they have been out in the parks and on the trails, and I appreciate their efforts to keep us informed of what they see and observe. So I want to give a big shout out to all the advisory committee members who are keeping us informed and supporting us in this time. Secondly, I've been involved with the fiduciary committee. We've been meeting several times, and we will bring you additional information, I believe, at the next board meeting. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Heidi?
Hello. Not a lot to report other than, yes, missing the advisory committee for our parks and nature and trails, excuse me. And thank you to those folks in THPRD who are taking care of our nature, parks, and our trails. I will say that the Tualatin Hills Park Foundation, we have a meeting next week on Wednesday, the 20th. The trustees for the foundation will be meeting at 11:30 to update our progress within the foundation. That's it.
Thank you. Ashley?
Thank you. Also, short report. Felicita Chair Monteblanco and I have been on weekly calls with other local Washington County elected officials. And it's just been really great to kind of hear the updates, hear what other districts are dealing with right now, and advocating on behalf of THPRD when we can. Resulted in Carrie from Senator Merkley's office reaching out just to say that the district's advocacy work with Merkley's office is noticed, and we are on top of mind for them. So that's really great. I just want to say a quick thank you to Jessica. I think I took for granted how smoothly you make everything run for us. I have 2 screens going right now, so I can see everything. So thank you. And this morning I walked through Raleigh Park. It's very close to my house, and I think that the pool deck is all done and it's looking really wonderful. So I know that this is a different circumstance and we would like that work to be done, but it's really exciting and I can't wait for it to reopen so we can really like celebrate all that awesome work for that pool.
Thank you. Tia?
Hi, not too much to report either. Programs and events haven't been meeting. We did do budget committee. I think that was after our last board meeting. And that went very well and very smoothly. It's probably going to need to get updated because it was based on pre-COVID events. But I was really proud of our group and the committee for doing such hard work and for the staff for presenting everything so clearly and being so thorough. And I know it was a lot of work and there's lots more work to do. So thank you. Other than that, just have been enjoying the parks. I'm super proud of our community. Every time we've gone to different areas or different playgrounds, I think it's been just one time when I've seen people use it. But other than that, with as much times as we're out as a family, our parks, or I'm on a run, all the parks have just been, all the structures have been left alone. So it's really great to see that our community is rallying together to keep our community safe. And yeah, I think that's it. Oh, I took my kids fishing this weekend on Mother's Day and we caught a trout at Commonwealth Lake. So there is fish in there if anybody's interested.
Thank you, Tia.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly echo everything my peers have said. And I just want to, on top of what Ashley was saying about our advocacy work, like just, it's really appreciated and like, let's keep focusing on it. It's one of the most helpful things that we can do as a team to build those relationships. And I know we all have different representatives and senators and different relationships, and that's fantastic. And we want to utilize those and continue to cultivate those relationships so people, so our representatives can keep our district in mind. So thank you. And then I kind of just had a question, and Doug, it's possible this is going to be answered later, so feel free to just ignore it, I guess. Regarding the Employee Assistance Fund, I know we've hit a couple hurdles with that, and just wondering if there is an update to share with the board.
Yeah, I certainly can, and it may be a duplicate within the presentation, but the short end is, yes, we have had a couple asks that have not turned out well, and one of which, Heidi, you had presented an option that was utilized, an agency you were familiar with, and we pursued the same avenue, and we ran aground because they in fact don't have that kind of funding category. So we are, as I've been respectfully, since we are a Park and Rec group, communicating with Felicita, we are now 0-2, and our goal is not to strike out. However, we are certainly open to new and different avenues. We are in play with the third concept, but it's not looking promising at this point. So not positive results at this point.
I know the collective brilliance on this phone call with all these amazing staff and all my amazing peers. This has been so frustrating because we haven't had any success, and this is something that really matters to us as a team. And so please share any and all ideas with Doug as we try to come up with solutions for how to provide financial assistance to our separated employees, because it's something other organizations have been able to do, and we're just running into a lot of obstacles. So I guess this is just a reminder to keep sharing those ideas. All ideas are welcome.
Thank you.
With that, I'll move forward with the next agenda item. Do I have a motion to move forward with the consent agenda?
Yes, Felicita, this is Wendy. I move that the board approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Thank you. Do I have a
This is-
second?
Yes, this is Ashley. Second.
Thank you. Jessica, please take a vote.
Heidi Edwards,
Yes.
Tia Ping,
Yes.
Ashley Hartmeyer Prigg,
Yes.
Wendy Kroger,
Yes.
Felicita Monteblanco.
Yes. Thank you. And now we'll go on to new business. First up, COVID-19 response efforts.
Yes, I've got a few opening comments here, and then I'm going to turn it towards Keith to start out with the formal presentation. Well, certainly with COVID pandemic in front of us, we know these are very interesting times and fast moving. Our focus as an organization for the past 2 months has been dominated by the virus response, ensuring the health and safety of our employees, as well as the public we serve, and positioning the organization to weather the storm. As we're well aware, we've experienced unprecedented financial impacts. We've had to lay off and furlough many staff. The past couple of weeks in particular have been spent making some very painful and difficult decisions and communicating those decisions to staff. While I want to acknowledge this difficult time and recognize the loss to the organization and the toll this experience is taking on everyone's morale and mental health as we work through some difficult transitions. I also want to say that the best thing we can do for the district is to focus on the future, rebuilding the organization and preparing for the future when we can welcome patrons and hopefully displaced staff back to the district. Tonight, we are going to see our focus shifting to thinking towards the future and what we anticipate over the next few months. Keith and Aisha will walk through some of what we've been working on. We'll look at, as best as we know right now, how our plans fit within the governor's reopening framework. We certainly appreciate and understand that all the support board members are giving us and community members, and yet we still have a moving target in front of us. It's very fluid, evolving situation. While we feel confident about planning for summer programming as early as July, we must also understand that we are all subject to the limitations of the state and, of course, the trajectory of the virus. All indications are that right now a form of summer camps and classes are viable, and we're optimistically planning to be ready. But we understand we must be flexible and adjust to statewide conditions as they change before us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Keith, who will kick off the formal presentation.
Thank you, Doug. If we could advance to the next slide, please. I want to start by revisiting some of the graphs that we showed at the last regular board meeting. This chart measures hospital resource use nationally. Compared to last month, it now shows a second peak with a longer tail out of the impact. The key difference in these graphs from last month is the graphs have been updated to reflect the loosening of some of the stay-at-home restrictions as states reopen, but these reduction in restrictions will have some negative impact on case counts and duration. So the next slide, this is the chart for Oregon that shows our projected daily cases, and it's hard to read on the bottom, which is the case counts, but it does show that these are declining through May and June. But it also shows the expected increase in testing that's necessary as part of our reopening strategies. The next slide, please. This slide is from a different source. The prior two slides were from the University of Washington modeling. This slide is modeling done specifically for the Oregon Health Authority. It shows the sensitivity to changes in risk reduction behavior. We're currently seeing about a 70% reduction in risk from current efforts and closures. This model shows the impacts of lessening this reduction to 60% or 50%. And it shows the change in the number of infectious as well as number of new severe and critical cases. Because this is so risk sensitive to risk reduction behavior, this is part of why we're seeing such a slow reopening and a careful strategy on reopening. The next. Shifting to the impacts to the district, this is the financial projection that was prepared by our CFO, Lori Baker, based on assumptions that programming will be closed through spring and summer. It recognizes cost reductions from previous actions of closing facilities and separating from part-time staff, but also measures the impact that we still had to close coming into the last couple of weeks. Well, you'll hear more later about our plans for summer programming. It's still not a certainty of when or how much programming we'll be able to offer this summer. And the expectations for any of that programming is that it would essentially be revenue neutral. As such, it's not likely to impact the net financial impacts that we show here. Next slide, please. So based on the financial impacts, this is the impact on our staffing levels. This recognizes the reductions we did in March from all but 5 of our part-time employees. And then over the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've been making the incredibly difficult decisions regarding our full-time and regular part-time employees. And in doing that, we've been assessing where we can keep employees active, where we expect to be able to keep them active 1 to 2 months in the future, and where we can't foresee activity for a longer period of time. Based on these assessments, we made, and again, it's the incredible difficult decision to lay off 23 of our full-time and regular part-time staff and furlough an additional 41 staff for 60 days. At this point, all staff have had conversations letting them know their status, whether it's a layoff, a furlough, or to let them know for sure that they're remaining active. And we're starting to have conversations with our work groups so they know the status of their colleagues. This is the first time we've had to go through an effort like this, and there was a lot of work done to make sure the process was fair and respectful, that employees received all necessary information, and that legal and contractual rights were honored. I have to acknowledge the collaboration we received from the THPRD Employees Association, which enabled us to work through this unprecedented process in a fair and equitable manner. I also really want to acknowledge Christine Hoffman and her HR staff for their work in helping us meet these objectives. Next slide, please. Now I want to shift gears to something a little more positive, and that is the plans for reopening. Any reopening activities, whether program or facility related, will be driven by the governor's framework for reopening. This framework starts with the prerequisites for moving to phase 1 of reopening, which are shown on this slide. Well, the move to phase 1 will occur on a county by county basis. Some of the prerequisites must be met at the health region level, and one is statewide. Washington County has not yet submitted their plan to the state, so they won't be considered for a May 15th move to phase 1. And what we're hearing is early to mid-June is a likely target for the county to move to that, but we'll know more when we know the county has submitted their plan to the state. Next slide. This information, This information changes regularly and it may be out of date already, but it is a rough framework for what each phase of reopening could look like. We're especially watching group sizes, which types of businesses can reopen, for instance, where it's referencing schools or gyms, and also what each phase means for employers working on site versus continuing to telework. The minimum time to move from phase 1 to phase 2 is 3 weeks. But based on what we're hearing, it actually could be several months to move from phase 1 to phase 2. Next slide. One of the sector discussions in the governor's framework is outdoor recreation. And we've been participating in discussions with Oregon Recreation and Parks Association to help draft a more specific framework on how this would look for park agencies. The intent is to make this as uniform as possible, but still recognize individual agencies will have to make choices based on their geography and their own resource limitations. The intent when this was initially created is that it would help inform the governor's sector discussions, but it also is being informed by the ultimate reopening plan. Where you see EO, that references the specific item in the governor's stay home executive order. I won't go through everything in each phase, but I do want to point out that when we created this, it noted playgrounds, skate parks, and sport courts would remain closed in phase 1, but the guidance from the governor's plan for outdoor recreation does allow agencies to consider reopening these if group size and distancing can be maintained. And when I say these, actually, it's just skate parks and outdoor sport courts. Playgrounds are not included in phase 1. So again, it's if group size and distancing can be maintained. We'll continue our discussions with Oregon Recreation Parks Association on whether their guidance will change to more closely align with the governor's office recommendations. The next slide, please. So while the previous slide is an executive summary of all of the phases, this is an example of the detail grid that was created. While the governor's guidance is specific to outdoor recreation, ORPA also tried to cover indoor recreation, and I've shown the portion of this document that's referring to phase 2, since that's where more of our activities can come back in a limited form. We're using these guidelines to not only consider what could be opened and when, but what additional requirements we might have to have, such as signage, cleaning, sanitization, and monitoring. And again, Aisha will cover our plans for programming activity in the summer in detail a little later. Next slide, please. I wanted to give a quick update on our federal legislative priorities. The first is to expand our access to COVID relief funds. The first round in the CARES Act made allocations to states and cities and counties over 500,000 populations. In discussions as recently as this morning, we understand that a second relief bill is in the works in the House, and it would provide more relief to state and local governments. We don't know what the final amount will be. There was recently a letter sent from the governors to the House of Representatives requesting this be up to $1 trillion in additional state and local government relief. Whatever the final amount is, our priorities are to ensure that THPRD can participate by reducing or eliminating the population requirement and by ensuring that special districts are specifically included so there's no chance for an inadvertent exclusion. We're also continuing to pursue eligibility for the payroll tax credits to compensate for leave provisions in the Families First Act. Public employers were excluded from this program, and there is a bill in the House right now that would remove that exclusion, so we're tracking that. And finally, the municipal debt market has been negatively impacted by the current economic situation. And given our need for interim financing each year, and especially this year with unknown cash flow, we're advocating for programs that will support municipal debt instruments or municipal debt markets through the use of Treasury instruments. We're working right now on the next round of state messaging surrounding the reopening plans and our participation and plans for those, and possibly accessing funds from the original CARES bill that were allocated to the state of Oregon. Next slide, please. We've spent a lot of time over the last few meetings discussing what we can't do right now, but I think it's also important to recognize there's a lot of vital work going on that will benefit our community. And I want to start by talking about some of the project work going on. You just in the consent agenda approved 4 contract awards for significant capital projects funded by either bond or systems development charge funds. Since these were funded by dedicated capital sources, they won't impact our operating funds, and they help support the local economy and keep contractors busy. And it's actually a very competitive bidding environment. We did very well with these projects. Natural resource restoration projects funded by the bond measure will continue over the summer. We're also using facility closures to try and work through several hundred small Americans with Disability Act access improvement projects that can be done by our existing staff with minimal cost. Next slide, please. We also have several long-term initiatives going on right now that will continue over the next 6 months. As you know, a big focus of the district over the past year was the development of a community visioning plan. While our schedule's been impacted by the pandemic, we're still committed to bringing this plan to the board later this summer. We were able to complete our survey phase last month with more than 750 responses. Staff will be taking the survey results along with all of the work that was done in the community engagement and action team phases and compiling that work. You can expect the vision plan to be ready for your consideration in August, and we will be sure to have our task force members be part of that evening so we can celebrate the new vision for THPRD together. As you just heard from Janine, work is continuing on the update of the systems development charge methodology, and a virtual open house was conducted last week to review the policy issues around scaling of fees with housing sizes. Again, as you heard, we'll be back in June for the next level of discussion with the board on policy issues. The Munis ERP project team is going full speed. Payroll and timekeeping modules are scheduled for a go live date of January 1st, and work will continue on the financial system and budget module implementation. And through all of this, we're continuing our focus on DEIA. This is a learning moment for all of us, and we'll be paying close attention to this issue. We know the virus is having a disproportionate impact on communities of color and vulnerable populations. For example, the Latino community has been especially hit hard by the virus, and we're seeing this in Washington County. Nationwide, the African American community is being impacted in greater numbers. Seniors are dying with the virus, especially impacting this population, and people are dying alone, experiencing depression and isolation. People with disabilities are having a hard time accessing services, and mental health has become a huge issue as people are struggling with isolation from the pandemic. At this point, we are aware and we're mindful. We're engaging with our community partners. Our cultural inclusion specialist is communicating regularly to discuss our role and brainstorming how we can offer support. Our communications team is working to engage with these populations, and human resources is supporting in terms of addressing these issues in our training efforts for staff. So the point we want to make is that we understand how critical this is, how critical it is that we apply an equity lens and we challenge ourselves as we move through these times and are having to make so many changes to our plans. We will be asking, who are we missing? How do we gain their perspectives? What's the impact of these decisions on the various groups? And we'll keep you informed of our progress and our efforts. Next slide, please. Our parks have taken on an even bigger role in the community as people need a local escape. We've been continuing to maintain them within the staff we have available, but now we're preparing for summer use of parks and trails, as well as preparing for the reopening of amenities like courts and fields. This means we likely are looking to add back some level of part-time staff support for park, trail, and natural area maintenance, and hopefully with some level of reopening, also our athletic fields. With that, I will turn the presentation over to Aisha Panis to talk about summer programming.
Thank you, Keith. Good evening, board members. I'm Aisha Panis, the Director of Park and Recreation Services. And while the last few months have been largely focused on the pandemic response, those of us in Park and Recreation have been anxious to get back to the work we do best, connecting the community to a variety of recreation opportunities. As we shared at the April board meeting, we created special teams to help strategize and develop new ways of engaging with the community. We know that access to quality, affordable childcare so that parents can return to work will be a critical need in the coming weeks and months. Therefore, we're focusing our efforts on developing models for summer camps that allow us to scale up or down depending on demand and resources. We've also created a virtual rec center where we're both curating external content as well as producing our own using our very talented and skilled staff members. Our staff are also developing facility safety plans and equipment plans, and we are re-envisioning how we might provide community events in light of physical distancing restrictions. And finally, we're excited to support your board as you host our first virtual town hall to solicit input from the THPRD community on the types of summer programming a week from tonight that we might be offering. And the details can be found on our thprd.org website. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, our innovative programming team is working hard on the development of our virtual rec center. We really wanted to provide that community gathering space for our patrons. Although they can't gather outside our gyms and dance classrooms or near our front desks, we want them to have a place to see familiar faces, find new ways to explore their neighborhoods safely, and enrich their lives. The site includes an ever-expanding list of program focus areas such as fitness and nature, and these are for audiences ranging from preschool children to active seniors. We're both providing links to partner sites such as Silver and Fit's live senior-oriented fitness events, as well as developing THPRD specific content, such as what you'll see on the next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. As you can see on this slide, we have a range of options for folks to enjoy, from backyard skill development to driveway tennis, yoga programs you can do in your living room, and brushing up on your photography skills. Next slide, please. With regard to our plans for summer, I mentioned that the provision of summer camps is a key priority for THPRD. We know that phase 2 of the state reopening plan presents our best opportunity to provide camps. So we're working toward beginning our registration camps just after the 4th of July holiday. We are diligently reworking our longtime, very successful camp programs to be consistent with state guidance for youth camps, and we expect further refinement of this guidance by the end of this week. This means we are likely looking at smaller sized camps, no longer including weekly field trips, and will be primarily based in parks. In terms of our various amenities, we don't believe we'll be able to open our pools until later in the reopening framework, but we'll be monitoring conditions closely. We are hopeful that sports courts and fields will open so long as we can assure safety protocols are met. Next slide, please. With any programming we're able to provide as we move into phase 1, then phase 2, and on into phase 3, we'll do it consistent with the guidance in place at the time. For now, we know that our ability to provide camps outside in parks will be more likely than inside our facilities, but we will adapt as conditions improve. We're doing the planning now to ensure that we have adequate equipment and supplies to ensure good hygiene, and are evaluating state guidance on face coverings and protocols for activities within camps, such as temperature checks for campers and staff. Next slide, please. Our summer and fall programming team is also assessing our facility readiness for providing recreation services as allowed by the state reopening plan. We know that we have to adjust class capacities. We expect that there will be limits on the number of spectators and visitors for a time. And we also anticipate needing to educate our staff and patrons on best practices for ensuring distancing standards and cleaning protocols are met. But we are confident that we are doing the necessary work to retool and reinvent the way THPRD serves its community, and we look forward to the day that we're able to welcome our patrons back to our recreation centers, our sports facilities, our splash pads, and our pools. Thank you for the opportunity to share our plans for the future, and we look forward to describing these ideas alongside you, virtually of course, at our town hall meeting next Tuesday. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Keith and Aisha, very, very much. Want to give an opportunity, yes, for those questions. Heidi, do you have questions for Keith or Aisha?
No, I don't have any questions. Everything's uncertain right now. I just really want to thank you all for focusing on the future and keeping that perspective, and for the creative collaboration you've had with the virtual rec center, the hopeful introduction of summer camp, and limited opportunities. But I really do also want to call out, thank you, Keith, for mentioning our continued focus on DEIA and our response to that, because that's certainly important to all 5 of us here on the board, and we know for staff and leadership as well. So no questions, I just want to commend you for the continued hard work.
Thank you. Tia?
And maybe you guys aren't aware, but I sent an email to Doug today that Portland Parks and Rec decided to close and not open any pools and close all summer classes. And I just I wasn't sure how close we're communicating with them, just to see how they came about their decision to close, and is it just based on the size or the budget that they have that's different than ours, that we can still are hoping for a potential open, versus they've decided to just completely shut down?
Well, maybe I'll start off, and I know Aisha's had contact as well. So we're engaged in a variety of different regional discussions, and Portland Parks, has gone through a great deal of challenges. Last year they had a budget cut situation. They literally lost 100 full-time staff. and that was last year. And then, of course, the double up with the virus, and with the citywide operation, they have a lot of exposure points. In other agencies, Washington County, City of Beaverton are experiencing these now and will continue well into the fall. That there's a variety of funding sources that are going to be challenged, and the city of Portland, as the case were, has taken some progressive moves to try to manage what they believe is right in front of them, and it is not without challenge. And the hope we're providing, and that's the picture we're providing. We don't get to control all the elements that go into this decision making and the opportunity in front of us, but it's our perspective that we need to be prepared to deliver what we can deliver. And the staggered concept is respecting that our patronage as well is going to need some time, and it could be finance oriented. It could simply be safety and health concerns, but I believe our community will step up. They certainly will step up initially, and progressively by fall we hope to be looking more of the new normal, I should say. So did you want to add anything?
Sure, Doug. We did get a preview of the decision that Portland announced this week, last week on our weekly conference call with Oregon Recreation and Park Association members. And so we had heard from Portland then that they were making the move to cancel all of their summer activities. They are not opening any pools. They're not opening any recreation centers. They have a variety of reasons for doing that. The chief among them was the fact that they indicated they were either laying off or unable to hire 950 staff members that they would typically rely on to deliver the programs over the summer months. And because they cannot bring those staff on, they just could not operate their facilities or provide the camps. So they indicated that that was their choice. And they have some additional pressures in Portland that they're currently, I believe, using 3 of their recreation centers as homeless shelters. And they are shifting their focus away from operating rec centers and doing summer event series to their key focus will be on delivery of meals in the parks along with some recreation. And so they talked a little bit more about that goal for the summer. And Sabrina Taylor-Schmidt, our recreation department manager, has a meeting scheduled later this week to learn more about what that effort looks like for the city of Portland. We have been working hard on developing our own scalable plans to deliver recreation. We believe that we can do this, but we are starting small with a very small baseline and indicating our scaling plans that we can grow the program should the guidelines issued by the state expand and allow us to do more. And like Doug said, we're really curious to know what the community wants, what they are concerned about, what they're looking for from a park provider. And so that is the reason why we're hosting these focus group conversations and the town hall meeting next week, specifically to gather that sort of information.
Thank you, Aisha, for the clarification. Tia, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I had one more question, which was, I know during summer camp and when schools gets out, we're a great location for helping with the school lunches during the summer breaks and stuff. But I know that the schools are kind of taking that on right now. And I wanted to see if that was something that we are still coordinating with them, or will the school locations continue with that summer feed program, or do we pick that up at all?
The school district takes the lead on that, and we have been in contact with their nutrition services representative. And that is part of the conversation that Sabrina wants to have with the city of Portland and will continue with Beaverton School District. We believe there is some guidance that we'll hear from the state later this week about how to manage the food and gathering of people conversation. And so we expect to know more about that in the coming week.
Great. Thanks, Aisha.
Thank you. Ashley?
Thank you. thank you for all the great work and information. I just wanted to chime in. I was on Washington County's town hall last night, and one of the things that Chair Harrington shared was that Washington and Multnomah counties both saw a slight rise in our positive COVID cases over the weekend. So I just want to emphasize that we all have to stay home and stay diligent so that we can get to this phase 1. I don't want to see the timeline extended. I want to see all this great work come to fruition sooner than later. So if you have friends and family that need the reminder to stay home, please give it to them. I also want to say thank you for the focus on DEIA. I hope that no one is using COVID-19 as an excuse to stop their DEIA work, and I'm glad that we will continue to prioritize it. I had 2 questions. If our summer camp situation is looking like it'll be mostly in parks, I'm sure you're considering our lovely Oregon weather. Is there a rain contingency as part of the planning?
Yes, we have been considering that. And that's also, while you may have heard that the state could start reopening in May or at end of May or middle of June, our plans for registration camps really start that Monday after the 4th of July holiday. Generally because that's when our summer usually starts in Oregon,
Yes.
just based on weather. And that's an absolute concern of ours, that we want both the certainty that we're more solidly into phase 1, at least possibly phase 2 by that time, but also we know that weather is a concern for us. And so we are selecting sites that give us those options. We're planning on the securing of pop-up canopies that we can use, if it's a little bit more of a mist, but we are considering using our spaces differently than we have in the past, exactly for that purpose. We need to provide a rainy day option when we do have those summer camps.
Yeah, awesome. And then follow on to that is the registration aspect of it. Knowing that we're going to have limited capacity, I feel like our registration and access to those is going to be even more in demand. So I'm curious what the initial thinking is around how we can provide equitable access to registration to those programs.
So in addition to the summer, fall programming and innovative programming teams, we've also had a team focused on registration. And that team has been looking at how we would deliver a new registration strategy in light of where we are right now, in light of knowing we're going to have a much more condensed summer activities guide, essentially, that we can offer. And so we've been considering that. And one key component of the registration team has been a focus on Centro. So we completely anticipate that is still a key need that has not been put to the side through this situation. So we do intend to still provide some sort of virtual Centro if that's how it plays out, or a socially distant one. But we are considering those access opportunities and the need for that. And we will be asking those questions and soliciting that feedback through our focus groups that are related to the summer programming, as well as during the town hall next week.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ashley is stealing all of my questions. Wendy, do you have questions?
Sorry, I had to find my unmute button here. No, one of the very nice things about going late in the process is that all the great questions get asked, and I second absolutely what I've heard already from the board, and just really want to commend staff, both in terms of the framework that you've used to attack this problem, and also thank you so much for the sensitivity for the people that we are losing. Hopefully temporarily. My heart just goes out to them, and also to the staff that's working with them. I also wanted to call out especially thank you for working with our partners, the county, the city, the school district. I think it's critical that we continue reaching out and helping each other as best we can, because we can spread everything farther that way. So again, please let us know on the board what we can do to help. We feel, I'm sure others besides myself feel frustrated in that we're so limited to what we can do, but we so much want to help, but we don't want to get in the way. So thank you for keeping us informed, and please let us know what else we can do. And thanks very much.
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, I certainly echo what all my peers have said. Thank you. This is great work and exciting, and I know every day things change, so I appreciate everyone's leadership. Kind of following up on what Wendy said, and that, you have 5 doers who like to help, who mostly follow instructions. One of the things that came to mind was the visioning committee, and I know we had originally we had thrown out a couple ideas a couple months ago, and all those probably don't apply anymore, but if you have thoughts on how we can thank the visioning committee for all their hard work and what is really lasting long-term work, this is mostly for Holly, I guess, please just let us know. Feel free to give us that assignment as appropriate. Another thought I had, 'cause we had talked about this months ago, and if it's on the back burner, of course, that's fine, but how we utilize our advisory committee members. There was talk about at some point maybe utilizing them as monitors, as parks. We're all having different experiences at the parks, and I was happy to hear that Tia's seeing most people follow rules. It's kind of been all over the place when I go, but I know that when somebody at least looks official, people are more likely to follow the quote unquote rules. And we certainly aren't going to be putting up a bunch of cameras, but I just wanted to kind of bring that up. But other than that, really appreciate everyone's work, and I really, really appreciate that we still are centering our commitment to racial equity. So thank you.
Yeah, perhaps Felicia, if I could ask Holly, she could comment on several of those areas with regard to visioning, as well as the concepts of our park ambassador potential as well. Holly?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to follow up. Really love this discussion and really love the comments coming from the board. I did want to point out on the visioning, one of the reasons we're pushing adoption of the plan to August is we want to make sure that when we do adopt the vision plan, we are able to do it with our task force. So that date is flexible as well, because we do want to have the opportunity to have an official recognition and to be with our task force members and celebrate that moment together as a team. So that's really important to us. I also wanted to touch back on registration for just a minute. We have been talking about Centro and doing it in person. So we've got lots of ideas for a physically distanced way in which we will do it. We will not back down from our commitment to communities of color, and we have and people who English is not the first language. We have great partnerships with many community-based organizations, have had dialogue several times in just the last week, actually. And I anticipate while our focus at this next Centro might still be primarily for Spanish speakers, we will be able to leverage those partnerships and be able to welcome and host anybody who needs extra help in a totally physically distance appropriate way. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because I know I'm opening a Pandora's box of a lot of questions here, but because we do have to communicate with the public about what summer programming looks like, it means that we have to do it in a completely different way, because we already printed our summer activity guide, which is now obsolete, and we don't have the budgetary funds to reprint, remail, and do the full activity guide production that we do for summer. So we have taken the creative license to ask our graphic designer to look at activity guides from around the country. Let's look at what we like the best. Let's steal those great ideas, and let's come up with an online version that much better reflects the district and much better represents what we want to put out there. There is a draft. If you check out today's employee update, there's a tiny, tiny, tiny preview just to kind of get you excited about what it might look like. that represents and shows how we'll show classes, camps, activities in a different way. I think that will be a huge step towards making that information more accessible for everyone, and making the guide maybe not so difficult, challenging, or scary to take a look at if you're not familiar with the former format. So I hope that we parlay this into, in a perfect world, we'd be having a much broader conversation about how we revisit the activity guide look and feel over time, but we might parlay this into what we do in the future moving forward. And then to Wendy's question about advisory committees, we are definitely keeping advisory committees in mind. We're going to be setting up and sending out an invitation for focus groups specifically for our advisory committee members. So Aisha mentioned that outreach work that we're doing to solicit input on top of the town hall meetings. We've done focus groups in Spanish. We've done focus groups with community-based organizations and partners, with participants in financial aid and Centro de Bienvenida. We've queried our registration system and talked to folks, invited them to smaller focus group conversations who've signed up for the most classes over the last 2 years during the summer. And we're going to be doing smaller focus groups with our advisory committees as well, to get their inputs on what we're thinking about summer programming. Those conversations have gone fantastic. The public has been so grateful. I really want to share with the board that the public has expressed their absolute gratitude, that we're thinking about summer, that we're trying. Patrons in those focus groups today made the same parallel about other park providers not providing summer programming and how grateful that we were looking at it. So that was very lovely. And as we move forward, I will continue to be talking with the advisory committee members about their potential interest in wanting to join as volunteers, ambassadors, because we know that the presence in the parks, having people walking around, gently reminding us what the rules are and to be safe makes a really big difference.
Thank you, Holly, so much. Very helpful. Are there any last questions about our COVID-19 response from my peers? With that, we will move forward with the general manager's report.
Okay, we've got just a couple overviews for you this evening. National Volunteer Month recognition. Keith Watson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Good evening, members of the board. I'm Keith Watson, Community Programs Manager. We'll give Jessica a second here.
Should be up. Do you not see it?
Yes.
I think it's the wrong presentation. It's just the slide of the board meeting.
Oh, okay. One moment, please.
Could have a commercial break here.
Quick potty break.
I'm glad you're doing this, Jessica. I'd be nervous.
I am nervous.
Great. We couldn't have a successful meeting without you, Jessica.
That's for sure. Okay. Thank you, Jessica. So I just wanted to take a moment tonight to recognize a program that brings a great deal of value to THPRD and to our community. National Volunteer Month in the United States takes place in the month of April. While our minds were on the COVID-19 pandemic this past month, we would be remiss not to take a moment to recognize and thank all of our volunteers who contribute to our success throughout the year. Next slide, please.
Sorry, one moment. It's having an issue.
There we go. Volunteerism is about giving, contributing, and helping others throughout the community, and THPRD would not be able to achieve all that we do without the gift of service and the dedication of our volunteers. Next slide, please. THPRD's volunteers serve in a variety of ways, from helping with community events, habitat and natural area restorations, park and trail cleanups, nature education, summer youth volunteers, sporting events, and so much more. Next slide, please. Last year, more than 4,000 people contributed over 55,000 hours to Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District. The value of volunteers' contributions to THPRD in 2019 was more than $1.4 million. Next slide, please. Volunteerism brings us together as a community. It breaks down barriers and provides everyone an opportunity to better our park and recreation system. Next slide, please. We look forward to a time very soon when our volunteers are again helping fulfill our mission to provide high quality park and recreation facilities, programs, services, and natural areas that meet the needs of the diverse community that we serve. With that, I thank you for your time this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Thank you, Keith. Any questions from my peers?
No questions. This is Heidi, but I have a comment. I would be remiss to not say anything as a commissioner for the Oregon Volunteers State Commission, and just the importance of volunteerism, not only within our district, but within so many organizations across the state. Many organizations could not move forward as they do without volunteer service. So thank you for this recognition. It's very important recognition for all of those who are serving as volunteers. And I do need to give a shout out for Melissa Markham, who has done an extraordinary job as a volunteer coordinator, and having served as a volunteer coordinator, you know, coordinating hundreds of people annually is a difficult yet very rewarding task. So thank you for that recognition tonight, Keith. It's very important.
Thank you, Heidi, and I'll be sure to pass those nice words along to Melissa. I appreciate it.
Felicita?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Wendy, and I just wanted to second what Heidi said, and also say that I so appreciate THPRD staff who work with the volunteers. You know, when people come together as volunteers and want to do the right thing, they got lots of energy and lots of enthusiasm, and sometimes not a lot of direction. And what I have found with our staff is very consistently being able to help direct those volunteers so that when they get finished with their hours or their day, that they're helping us do something, they feel that they've accomplished something, in very large part, I think, because of the great organization and help and direction from our staff. And one of the people that I would like to shout out to is Sarah Skelly, because, you know, if you don't know what you're doing, it so helps when somebody like Sarah comes along and says, this might be the best place to go now. And so again, please thank all of your staff who have helped with the volunteers, because you make it really worthwhile.
Thank you, Wendy.
Ashley or Tia, any thoughts or questions?
Nope, just gratitude.
Gratitude, yeah. I feel like working with and supporting volunteers is one of the most underrated skills on the planet. So thank you to everyone who works with volunteers, and all of you work with us and we're volunteers. So we appreciate you and how you support us. So with that, I think Sabrina is up next.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'll wait for Jessica to pull up the presentation. Good evening. My name is Sabrina Taylor-Schmidt, and I'm the Recreation Department Manager, and I'm here to let you know about some of the partnerships to address homelessness that the Parks District has been focusing on. Next slide. We've been working with Family Promise for a few years, and I'm proud to say that we have renewed our MOU with them. We currently have 3 different times a year they're with our centers, where they house 3 to 4 families. In August, we had them at the Elsie Stir Center, in December at the Cedar Hills Recreation Center. And this March, we had them at Garden Home. And while they were there, the COVID-19 situation happened, and we were able to extend their stay and help them out while they made some transitions. Julie Roach is here to talk about another partnership with me.
Good evening, board members. I'm Julie Rocha, the sports department manager. We set up a temporary homeless shelter at the Elsie Stir Center in partnership with Project Homeless Connect and Community Action. Next slide, please. Next. Yeah. We started the temporary shelter on April 10th. We are currently serving 25 guests. They are single men and women, and we have them in separated quarters. So we have in the bottom, you can see we have the large birch room for the women, and then we're using the manzanita room for the men. We have mobile showers brought on site a few times a week. They are served meals out of the small kitchenette off the manzanita room. We had face masks donated by an employee from Nike. They were test masks that they were using for OHSU, and they were able to donate those so that we could outfit all of our guests with masks. We are currently working with THPRD employees to donate essential items. The shelter is currently scheduled to go through May 31st, but we could extend that through June if the need presents itself. So it's been a great partnership, and we are happy to be able to serve as many guests as we can. And I'm now going to pass it on to Holly.
Hey everyone, before I start, I just want to express our gratitude from staff to the board, because you, all 5 of you, have been absolute champions, encouraging us to think outside the box, to think about how we can do more to help the homeless within our community, to partner with organizations. Many of you brought some of these opportunities to our attention. So thank you so much for your advocacy and for steering us in a very appropriate and good direction. I also want to acknowledge that the organizations that we are partnering with and work with are doing the work of angels. It is not easy work. This is not, when we talk about success, we're going to be looking at small numbers and appreciating the huge impact. This is not easy work. And when people have lost their home, lost their shelter, lost so much, even their dignity, it's really, really challenging, the issues that this population are struggling with, and everyone needs to support and help. So I specifically want to update you on our partnership with the City of Beaverton. They are an umbrella to create a safe parking program in Beaverton. Tualatin Hills Park and Rec was the very first partner to sign up. We signed up and were part of that arrangement when they announced to the public that they were going live with a safe parking program. And for many months, we were their only partner. I'm happy to say they've brought a couple of other churches online. We helped them in that advocacy and talked to people about our experience and why we thought it was a good program to participate in. So we've been able to leverage that partnership to help people work through their challenges, to think about participating as well. So the program was originally a 1-year pilot. It was our site at the THPRD location opened in April of 2019. So it's been a year. In terms of outcomes, we served 9 adults. Those 9 folks stayed in 6 different vehicles. Originally, we thought that the average length of stay would be much shorter, but we found that it took a lot of time for the City of Beaverton's partner that they contract with, Just Compassion, to work with the folks, to work through the case management and to help people graduate from the program. I'm happy to share with you that we have been able to see Just Compassion help 3 people graduate from the program into housing. One lady that I want to kind of highlight is someone who has been chronically homeless for many, many years, has been struggling with numerous health concerns, and who really didn't think that she would make it into housing. And because of the advocacy work of Just Compassion, because of their ability to do that solid case management, because of having a safe space to work on those issues, she was able to move into housing right before the stay-at-home order went into effect. So that's the kind of intense help and support that it takes, and that's been a really big success. We have, as we fully anticipated, have some people leave the program. A couple of people moved away, and a couple people were not able to make the commitment to follow through on the case management. In terms of what has our experience been, I would say by and large, it has been overwhelmingly positive. We have had at our site most recently some challenges with a guest who did have to be asked to leave the program for non-compliance issues. And I would say that as we've had some turnover with staff at Just Compassion, we've had to do some resetting on communication between the three partners to keep everything streamlined. But things are in a really good place right now. We anticipate welcoming 2 new guests in the next couple of weeks to the site and look forward to supporting these folks on their journey. We have recommended, and Doug agreed, to extend that partnership for another year. So we will be signing an agreement with the city to reaffirm our commitment to be a partner in the Safe Parking Program for another year. And I'd really like to commend John Campbell. He's our person who is the on-site representative. He goes and he meets and greets every guest that is welcomed into the Safe Parking Program. John's gone out of his way. He's done some things like put additional amenities out there to try to make people's lives a little easier. And he's just really that personal touch. And I think everyone can really appreciate what he's done to welcome the guests to our location. So with that, I think that concludes our presentation, and any of the three of us would be happy to take questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Holly, Sabrina, and Julie. I hope I've made it clear how much I appreciate this work. I really do. And I appreciate you highlighting John, because I didn't realize his role in this. And I know so many are doing things that they didn't realize they might be doing as part of Parks and Rec, but these are our community members, and we have a role to play. So I'm forever thankful for everything that y'all have done and that we've done together. Ashley, any questions?
No questions. Just the struggle of us not being able to see one another face to face is I'm expressive with my hands or my face, and you can't see how happy I am to hear this update. And I'm just so grateful for all the work. Keep it up.
I think they know how animated we are, Ashley. It's okay. Wendy, questions or comments?
Yes, again, I reiterate what Ashley said. I'm so appreciative of staff and all their efforts. And I had one question. On a previous slide, it noted that THPRD staff has been helpful in getting various essential items to the people, I think, at Elsie Store, but I'm not sure if could somebody clarify that? And is there any way we could help with that?
Yeah, Wendy, this is Julie Rocha. So we had put out a list of essential items that are needed by the shelter to our employees to ask for donations. Obviously, Project Homeless Connect can always use financial donations, but they're also in need of first aid kits. They need large t-shirts. They also need men and women's underwear, socks, and then breakfast bars like Z bars or granola bars that can be utilized for kind of a grab and go snack for their guest. So if anybody would like to donate those items, you can get in touch with me and I can coordinate that.
Thank you, Julie, very much. That helps.
Tia?
No questions on my part. This is amazing. I'm so glad we're going to continue doing it. Hopefully we can just keep expanding the program as best as we can and do as much as we can to help these underserved people in our community. Thank you, guys.
Heidi?
Just a comment, I think this really reinforces our commitment to working with our community partners. whether it be City of Beaverton, Family Promise. Thank you, staff, for all that you're doing and for serving the community at large.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing. I mean, at some point, this will probably wrap up, and it'll be interesting to hear kind of what we've learned. And when I saw Mark a couple weeks ago, he made me laugh. He was like, "We're totally ready for the earthquake." And I know we've all learned so much over the last couple months, and this is a significant piece of it. So thank you. Doug, anything as we wrap up that you want to add?
Nope, I think we're in good form. I appreciate everyone's willingness to virtually gather.
Oh, you know what? Before I forget, you know what wasn't highlighted here? The wonderful partnership with Virginia Garcia. And so I'll do that.
Perfect.
Just real fast, huge thank you to Mark and Rogelio and the entire security team who helped support the food bank distribution at the Beaverton, well, for the Beaverton's clinic for Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center. And we did it at the Cedar Hills Park. The first round had a couple stumbles, but the second round went so smooth. I didn't get a final count, but it was a lot of people that we served and representative of at least 100 or 200 families or family members. So that's another really wonderful example of how the Park District has just been super responsive to the needs in the community. And just like with Elsie Stir and parking lots, you know, we have something that is of huge value to others, and it's really easy for us to help. So I so appreciate all the leadership at the Park District ensuring that we can respond to community needs. So thank you. With that, I will now close the meeting and we will adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, so much. So nice to hear your voices.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.